the key though that I found that so many of my podcast colleagues overlook, and this isn't their fault. It just takes years to get it, and being behind the right projects to see it, is distribution. Nobody knows how distribution really works. They just think screaming louder or like inviting a bunch of people to come live and say hi does something. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It doesn't work that easily.
no, it doesn't. So this content, like you're so poised as a leader during this, we could use this entire thing as an episode as pre-show materials to get people legitimately like, okay, wow, look, these guys might actually know what they're doing. And I'll give one other perspective on it. We have to compete against The Walking Dead. You know, like this is entertainment. This is time people take to watch them. And nobody's, cooking popcorn and coming to watch Jackson talk on a microphone. Like that doesn't happen. And so I look at that industry and I realize that when a new show comes out on TV, during that day, like 400 trailers and teasers come out. Don't forget at 7 p.m. Walking Dead. Don't forget, Rick's gonna do whatever on that. It's just over and over and over. And if something that attractive needs that amount of publicity to get people to actually show up, I don't know what we're doing as podcasters, releasing an episode and forgetting it. It's wham bam, thank you, ma'am, move on. And so we, when I worked with Jake Larson at Video Power Marketing, we were working with Entrepreneur on Fire, John Lee Dumas. We're working with Dan Martell, SaaS Academy. We're working with Lewis Howe, School of Greatness, and a few other great shows like that, Dr. Eric Berg. These guys dedicated a lot of effort to making sure that their pre-show process was super on point. So that's my preferred approach. The other opportunity, we just go live. We just make it happen. We do our best as we go to optimize. We'll always do that on our end. But Eli, what would you like to do?
So could you just explain what's the main difference between the first and second, going like we go live now and just talk about it, or plan more specific details out, you're saying?
Yeah. So yesterday, I'll give you an example. I spoke to, what was his name? I had 5 episodes yesterday. It was nuts. I don't normally do that. Greg Kaiser. He's a B2B guy, by the way, and really, really nice guy. Not robot into podcasting. He uses it just to practice his message. But we took the pre-show route, and I asked him, I was like, what are some of the best things that you've seen other podcasters do? And most people can't think of anything, and I'm like, what would just make you so happy to have done? And we try to go through that route. And he right away said, it's kind of awkward to me how few podcasters think of the value of sending us the files proactively so that we can cut our own stuff. And I was like, I kind of feel like an idiot now. It's like, thank you for that. That's such a big deal.
I've guessed it a bunch, and I always tell them like, hey, please give me the raw recording so I can distribute, like we were saying also, and make other assets that can benefit both of us, start getting, people warmed up even before the show is out live. I'm not planning, to put the whole thing up. I just want it so that I can create content and start getting that amplification and distribution going. Like a lot of the things that you're saying, Jackson, are like very aligned with me in general, with LinkedIn, what we do and how it ties, especially, podcasting and LinkedIn, distribution and LinkedIn, branding and LinkedIn, and how that all comes back together. Like, if you're already doing that side, you must be on at least LinkedIn to distribute it. And, if your audience is B2B and founders and decision makers, then even more so, of course, you want to be on LinkedIn.
Huge. And, it's funny. I'm going to dovetail us, but come right back on it. We can put a pin in it for later. One of my biggest clients right now, they've got 250,000 followers on different channels. They're the only business I've seen in a very long time with that level of traction that does not have a LinkedIn profile. They don't
really.
Neither one. They're 2 doctors. Neither one of them have the profile. I'm like, well, this is interesting. I guess like for now, we'll just continue to ignore it because we've got so many other things that are going well and happening. But yeah, so I plant that seed. We'll come back to it because, I've been thinking like, well, all right, maybe when we get ready to upgrade our LinkedIn systems or find some guru or experts who are doing great with that stuff, and then you pop along. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I played with your systems too. I'm grateful you have proactive systems. So it was easy for me to go and like see the tools, see the depth, and start playing with it. And I ran into some things I'd love to talk to you about to make sure that I know how to do. And
Yeah, of course.
ultimately,
Yeah.
that will give me that much more of an authentic vibe with like, okay, visionaries, here's how I would use this based on what I've seen and what I've learned. So that's another opportunity. I want to go back to your point though. You brought up the again, we brought up the files, started talking about that. And so I realized after Greg, I was like, oh crap, how have I never thought to automate this process? We always wait till somebody asks and then we do it. And there's certain people we won't give the files to. Certain guests just don't cut it. And so with that, it's like, okay, we just create a trigger, with a keyword, so that when we want to, we can send those out to the individual who qualifies for it. And then, yes, of course, take the files and run with it. What we need to also do, though, is make sure that the presentation is clear enough to remind people not to put the exact same cuts, because that then, duplicate content can create algorithm challenges. So, yeah, that was a big one. So, again, we spend oftentimes the first session talking through what have you seen, what have you done, good, bad, and ugly, what can we avoid, what can we do better. And it's amazing what our guests are able to teach us about what's going on in the world and how we can make it better. So you may have gotten to see the new confirmation page. It's a little bit wonky, but it's also got a lot of information about how to distribute. Did you get a chance to see that, or do you have an assistant do it?
Yeah, no, I did check it out. I saw, posting about it, and I saw the templates that were made. That's super helpful. At least us having, dealing with LinkedIn and doing in our day to day. So that's usually typically like the host never has to worry about our end. Like I want to get it up on my personal profile, on my company page, and just make sure that we both get distribution from there. But it was actually the first time that I've seen a page like that from a host. So I found it cool also being able to go through and check your audio and your video. So it was well thought out and appreciated having that as a confirmation page. But really, I'm all for bringing value, having, the eye-to-eye conversation, anything LinkedIn, like we go way beyond just the personal profile. So company pages, personal profile, employee advocacy, and really making LinkedIn a centralized growth engine. So I just want people to understand, like, really LinkedIn is a life-changing platform. Like the opportunities that you're able to generate from it, whether it's a podcast, it doesn't have to always be a deal. It could be a podcast appearance or
so much
a
easier.
speaking at an event, or yes, maybe a deal, but it could also be a hire. It also influences retention. So we can really go into all these worlds. Like really, we've been doing it for almost 7 years now. Have a team with me that we've been doing it, and really have worked with industries and different stages, from early stage startups and all the way up to Fortune 500 companies.
We have so many amazing things we can unpack for the audience on that. A couple of years ago, I was working with another company. I was an independent contractor with them. So this was about 5 years ago, and we were using LinkedIn automation. We were using Ulink, then we used Buzz, we went back to Ulink, right? Had these systems to create automation, and his response rate was around a 30 to 40% on his messages, which wasn't bad. But 4 out of 5 of the responses, what is that, 80%, were negative. And it was a typical message that people receive, and it was still working from a profitability standpoint. So I went in, I optimized the messaging, took out a lot of the tactic, and made it more authentic. And we went from 4 out of 5 negative to 1 out of 5 on the negative side, still maintained around the 30%. Then when we launched our podcast, go ahead.
No, I do want to know. It's interesting what you mentioned there. Now, I'm happy that you were able at least to solve the 4 out of 5 to 1. We don't use any automations. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it can get profiles shut down and completely.
Oh yeah, he got banned for a bit.
Yeah. So, and if he was able to come back, then he's lucky. But today they're very cutthroat. They'll say, Jackson, you are out, and you will have to start connecting one by one, like to me and everyone else, all their 2,000 plus guests or whatever, and anyone that you've known throughout your whole career. So it's always, even if it's like, yeah, there are ways to mitigate it and VPNs, and they have all the guardrails, and their websites say that, they're verified to get across it, there's a percentage, whatever it is, if it's 1 or 10 or whatever. And that's just something that I can't do for myself or for my clients. So we're also very much more on the approach of, let's do the outbound or the outreach, but let's make sure that we're having the conversations with the right people and not at the masses, but more off of profile views, off of engagement, off of different signals. Yes, maybe there is a cold outreach, but you don't need to be at the masses. And it's always an interesting conversation to, especially with like the biz dev and salespeople, because they're trying to hit like scale and quota. But the risks involved just are something that I personally,
it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And my duty, especially working very closely with LinkedIn and being partners with them, is to make sure that people understand at least the risks. And, if they choose in the end to still do it, that's everyone's free will. But I do find that many times when I mention to people that it's against the terms ROL, they're like, oh, I had no idea. People are just saying, hey, I do these automations. They don't know that because automations are good. People should be using AI. People should be automating things. But on LinkedIn and the platform, there are other platforms that you can automate these types of things. On LinkedIn, that's not the platform to do it.
Yeah, and it's tough for the entrepreneurs. The plausible deniability only gets you so far, right? The ignorance factor of like, it works a little bit, but we got to be better delegators than that. And learning how to protect our systems is critical. So I'm glad you said that. When we switched to using it for our brand and we launched our podcast, we were first getting close to the same messaging before the podcast. We launched the podcast, back to your point, and we had on the cold ICPs probably north of 80 to 85% response rate. Wow. Almost all positive. The only negative we would get was like, sure, that was it. It was just like passive yes. But we didn't have anybody anymore complaining or mad or upset because we weren't trying to force an offer down people's throats. We weren't walking up to people like a guy in a bar saying, hey, you want to go Netflix and chill? Hey, you want my fast guarantee that tells you I'm not a get rich quicker, but we're pretty much doing that. Like that messaging is just so awful. And so many entrepreneurs fall victim of it because just like with the regulations or with the rules, they also don't know how marketing works. And they say, well, I didn't know that message. And it's like, well, you've got to learn what you need to do. So I'm really glad you mentioned it though, because it's been a few years since we've used the automation. Podmatch has done so much for us to just get constant traction that supply and demand is so in our favor that we don't have those systems maximized. I think we should have them maximized, but you've given me something to think about in terms of like, all right, well, do we move our thresholds down even further for how many we reach per day so that we're only, connecting with 5 per day instead of the typical 20 that used to be the algorithm.
If you still decide to use the automations on LinkedIn, then tread very, very, very lightly. Like 20 is already at the top scale of it, and you're getting close to the trigger line. 5, if you're going very lightly and you have a good profile, like if it's from your profile and you're active and you're posting and you have premium, and you're kind of playing the game where you're paying LinkedIn, it can reduce the chances and you have, more ways. There's still the risk and you still know that they are increasingly, doing more and more to be on top of it. And they're the number one most trusted platform out of all of them. And there's the least amount of bots in general. But yeah, so I would definitely tread, lightly and on the lower scale if you do have, some there and really try to,
The other thing I would add to that, for anybody who gets to listen to this, to play devil's advocate a tiny bit, we have I don't call it a virtual assistant program because I don't believe in virtual abuse, and the VA thing usually leads to virtual abuse. But we do have people work with us throughout the world. And so one of my favorite things to do with the automations is set the virtual assistant up with their automation. For a couple of reasons. One, if we play by the rules the right way, meaning they're not making people mad, they're not offending people, the messaging is fantastic, and their profile is set up really well, then it does help them increase their network for any future opportunities they may want. But 2, they're also not at risk like we are of losing their profile because my team members were never using LinkedIn in the past before. So it's not an asset that they had to worry about. And I'll even use myself back when I launched JCal Digital, my first agency. I was terrified to bring somebody in and hire them and give them access to my LinkedIn account. And then I thought about it for about an hour, and my ego started to shrink. And I realized I'm not Bill Gates. I've got like 2,000 followers back then. I think I've even had 1,000. I was like, if I lose this, I just start over. It's like losing $1, back then. But if you do have a profile that needs to be protected and that you've built a lot of strength into, then Eli's right. Like I would be very, very careful about risking the asset. So I appreciate that. Eli, is there anything that comes to mind? And I'm gonna shift back to the page. You praised me, and I appreciate that a lot. Thank you for the gratitude and the uplift. Is there anything? So there was a couple things in that page. There were some buttons that said 4444, and they needed to have a microphone on there. So the team's going to change that. The title was a little bit small, needs to be bigger, and there was a random little icon that doesn't need to be there. Thanks, ChatGPT. Right, so we'll get those things adjusted on the code. But was there anything else that you would change about the page? Any particulars? It can be as minute, or like something that's like, what would really inspire you and other guests to flow through that and maximize the experience, so they do promote and they do use the tools, because if they don't use the tools, they're limiting their own distribution as well as ours. So
the distribution part, especially when it comes to podcasting, I think is more valuable and impactful for both parties, the host and the guest, actually after the show. So I think if I remember correctly, like on the confirmation page, it was, a template to let the audience know that they will be coming on to the show. And that
I disagree though. And here's why.
Okay.
No movie comes out without pre-distribution ever. So I love that we do have to have post-show, 1,000%. But the biggest reason why podcasts are getting destroyed from a distribution standpoint compared to every other successful medium of entertainment is they're always pre-sold, just like books. Very few authors do a pre-order book. I just talked to Marianne yesterday, Marianne Bashinsky. She's got a pre-order on her book. And I'm like, you're doing it right. Who are you working with? And she's working with book thinkers. Who are book thinkers? They launched Alex Hormozi's book. But Jamie Kern Lima also did a pre-order. Why? They understand that the faster, the sooner, the bigger momentum you build for the train that's about to take off or that's taking off. Like that's all super important. So I don't mind what you're saying. I love it. We have to get post-show distribution at a high for sure. Definitely. But is there maybe what we need to do is make that clear faster on the page of why it's so important. And I use an analogy, but it's buried in the middle, Eli. And so a lot of people don't see it. And the analogy is a podcast is like a restaurant that sets up a birthday party for a child. And they do so many things to get it set up. But if the child and the parents forget to invite friends and family members, everybody that's in the restaurant feels awkward for the child who doesn't have friends and family there. Too many podcast guests don't realize that it's their job to get the audience there too. Michael Jordan would never be in an empty room. Why? Not because it's because his team makes sure he's never there. Make sure that Taylor Swift, her team makes sure she's always sold out. If she's not, it would be a PR nightmare. And so if we start to learn on when I'm guesting on a show, it's like, okay, I got to do everything I can to make sure I fill the room so that my authority comes through, so that, if I'm going to engage the audience, I have an audience there who knows who I am and can say cool things. But I think a lot of people miss out on that. So is there anything else? That's a big one, is I need to make that far clearer. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I definitely, I agree with your point of it needing to be also pre-distribution and also post. I think it just, comes also back to, the person on the other side, like how, yes, if he does understand the importance of posting and he kind of has more of a presence, then it can already maybe be easier for him to do the pre and the post. But I feel like for the most part, the post is already, once you have like the value and more content and something that you can give to your audience. So I feel like if someone had to pick one or the other, they would pick the post, but they need both. I agree with you that ideal situation, they should have pre, you should warm up the audience. You should let them know what's coming and where to be found. And yes, you as the host, you are doing a great job by making an extra step easier. it still may be, not enough for the person to do it, but that's fine. You as a host leave a good impression. You make it a little bit more accessible. I would maybe consider adding also already there, even though it's predetermined, having maybe some idea for what they can do for the post as well. Because once they leave this page, they're not going to get something unless you have another page for the post as well. Thanks for being on the podcast. It was great speaking to you. And then that takes them to the template or something to also help them, like you do here with the pre.
Huge.
Yeah.
Super
But I
important.
think I think overall, like really, I think you mentioned that it's a pretty new page that you launched. I think it's good
Yeah.
to continue going that and get more feedback from it. It is well thought out. There's great sections there. It makes sense for, to best prepare the guest again for both ends, for the guest to, bring the most value and look his best, and for the host to make sure that he's setting up the guest for optimal success.
Love it.
So like I mentioned before, it's not something that I've seen a lot. Some hosts
Oh no.
have, sent some guidelines or something before, but I think, I also have a podcast of my own, and will send, videos before, letting people know, just to see who the host is, who I am, right? Some things that they can expect. Again, also the audio and the video. Those are all very important things to emphasize.
You've inspired me tremendously. Thank you for going through this. It almost feels selfish because we're looking at my materials, but you inspired me to use the materials just now to realize I can use the same tool while I'm with you to create a post about how I'm hosting you as a guest. And so while my team's doing certain things for that, they don't get to know beforehand how my pre-show goes. Like what, whether I get along with the guest, whether we get value out of it. So now I can use the same page during these times to make sure I'm saying, hey, I'm talking about the subject of LinkedIn with Eli. And Eli, how do I say your full name?
Yeah, Eli Igra Serfaty.
Serfaty. Okay. Eli
Yeah.
Igra Serfaty. Perfect. So I can then use the materials, and we could even make it more workshoppy, I guess, where if somebody wants to dive in during the pre-show with me and say, hey, I'll do this while you do this. I'll do this while you do this, right? We can even take that to a point where we can get immediate traction, and then like, okay, I shared it here. You can go like it and comment on it, etc. For those who are a little bit more copyright, like they're not scared of copywriting. Those who are, it's like, okay, you got to back off a little bit. So Eli, last couple of minutes, is there anything that's been done in a podcast that we may not be doing that you kind of rarely see, or that's essential and you're like, dang, Jackson, this would be a huge upgrade opportunity for what you guys are up to?
Well, I mean, I'll take it to my world of expertise of LinkedIn, and I'll say that, having more of, you have lots of guests and lots of people that come on, having different forms of content on LinkedIn specifically. One podcast episode, if it's up to 15 minutes, can be in its entirety uploaded as a video to LinkedIn. If it's longer than that, then it can be cut down into shorts, and those can be used, for of variations of use cases. They can be shorter ones, they can be longer ones. You can experiment with 30 to 90 seconds, and you can also see how maybe a longer segment, 2 to 5 minutes. There's lots of changes on video that's going on in LinkedIn and the platform itself. I'd say the number one format is text and image. So again, you can also have the thumbnail or other images from the podcast itself, and you can use series of posts about the episode. You can turn the episode into an article. A LinkedIn article is longer than a post, which is up to 3,000 characters. Articles can be, I think, around 30,000 or even more. And it's like a typical blog. You can have hyperlinks, you can have photos, you can have videos, you can really have a lot of other functionalities. And I think this is really interesting, Jackson, and not many people know or yet understand. LinkedIn articles are indexing very, very strongly with LLMs, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude.
Oh,
SEMrush just released a report that was based off of, I think, close to 300,000 prompts that they analyzed. And they were seeing that LinkedIn is right now, this was back in October 2025, was the number 2 most cited source Number one was Reddit, but I think in many months, if those who maybe understand more, LinkedIn is seeing a big decline. So I think the next report that comes out in 26 and going forward, 26, 27, LinkedIn will continue to be a dominant source for LLM visibility. It's the number one trusted professional platform, B2B. There's verifications, there's profiles, there's real careers on the line, right? The brand, the reputation, everything that we're also is important to a podcast guest or to any leader or visionary. His visibility long term on these AI platforms will be directly correlated to his presence on LinkedIn. So having an optimized profile, having a content, whether it's blogs or articles or posts or videos, we call it ROL, Jackson, the return on LinkedIn. You may be familiar with ROI, but the time, the money, the resources that you invest into LinkedIn long term, it's not a short-term play. You can't build trust, credibility, and authority overnight. These are things that take months and years.
Yes.
It can be ruined very quickly, but it takes months and years to build these relationships and the reputation and trust. And I think today we're in a trust recession to where many people, and it's very hard to see with all the noise and everything going on. LinkedIn is your median to directly get in front of the people and the organizations and whatever it is, from HR, sales, marketing side of it, or investors, and to build that trust and to remain top of mind. So I think anyone who has, especially if you're on a podcast, you need to maximize the ROI and the ROL by taking those incredible assets and conversations and seeing how you can reformat and repurpose them and really get the most out of each one.
Absolutely. Let me get back over here for us. So Eli, I loved it. And there's some things about your LinkedIn profile. I was like, oh, cool. Our team can work on that and optimize this. We're not using the slider at the top, for instance. I was like, oh, cool. I haven't even seen the slider. I've seen the videos, but I didn't see the slider yet. So that's another upgrade we can make. And really what you're talking about there, you're talking about the more important things that I often color commentate for my guests, is going back to the fundamentals. But you are fundamentally driven. And you are driving based on principles, and I really, really appreciate that. I was on your website. I wanted to show it, but you have a pop-up on your website that allows people to go through and start interacting with the tool and analyzing their profiles. And so I went through level one. There was an instruction that I didn't know how to follow, but I eventually found it. And I was like, okay, cool. The export button was a little bit hard to find. So I would also recommend adding like a Loom video where you walk people through the process.
Was there not a Loom video there? I think there was supposed to be somewhere, but
there's some like little blue things, but I couldn't click it. And maybe that was my browser.
No.
And then
definitely a good suggestion.
Secondary, when I went to my profile, I couldn't find the more button to make the PDF.
They may have just changed the name. Look for resources.
Check this out. There you go. So you see the resources button?
Yeah.
Nothing happens on LinkedIn for mine.
So it could be a temporary bug. You can try to circumvent it by logging in through incognito or a different browser. If you see that on if you see on a different browser that you're still not able to get anything when you click on resources, because there's several things that are supposed to be showing up. If you can't get anything,
I bet it goes this time. There you go. Yeah. It just wanted me to look dumb. That's all.
It happens, technology. So yes, and also LinkedIn has been bugging the last few days recently. So I think lots of moving parts and hopefully features are going on. But yeah, so if you click on resources, and it's an important note, you can only download the PDF of your profile from the desktop. You can't do it from the mobile. There are different functionalities between a mobile phone and LinkedIn on the desktop. So once you hit resources,
how do I get back to that? How do I get back to that analyze thing?
Go under resources.
Oh.
I got to check with my team. It may have been only for the pop-up. I have a direct link that I can send to you, but I just don't have it on hand right now.
Worries. Well, cool. Those are optimizations for the next show as well. So that'd be awesome. Well, Eli, would you like to come back?
Yeah.
Cool. I'd love to have you back, and if you're okay with it, we can use this segment as our first show. And it's turned into a full process, and then what we can do is we'll go live on the next version. And we'll do closer to an hour-long session. You can send me 1 to 2 different titles that we might use, and then we'll pull a description together based on the title. We'll dive into your vision and what you're up to, and how this can help other visionaries with building out their visions and building their ROL.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Again, I think we can take the LinkedIn anywhere from the company. I want to talk about it holistically. That's really like what we believe. The more it could be starting from a founders, but going to the company pages and the employees, the more that people integrate LinkedIn, the more value that they'll see from it. So we can definitely,
100%.
We have a lot to discuss and to dive in there. When do you think that we'll be able to do the episode?
I'll ask Cynthia. I'm hoping that within 2 to 3 weeks maximum.
Okay, cool. And so, could we do also the time that we started here? That would actually be good, because when I looked, if probably. That works for you.
Cynthia, okay, yeah, cool. I'll ask Cynthia. You're welcome to make any requests you want in the email. That way we can try to accommodate, and we'll do the hour long. If we end up needing more time, let's book another show with another title. Let's make it happen, because I can see the depth that you have, and we can use short clips to kind of rush fast value to people based on production over time. But I'm a big fan of if I've got a calculus teacher who does know how to simplify it, but is going to be teaching things that people aren't using, that takes time. And the people who are going to value it, they're going to watch it.
Yeah, I'm very for less theory and more practicality. And when I talk about LinkedIn, yes, we will talk about, the macro levels and getting people to do that perspective shifting of how they look at it and use it. Because many think, it came out in 2002, or don't even remember that it came out in 2002, and that it's only for hiring and job seekers. But today in 2026 and going forward, it's very different. And we do lectures and workshops all the time. They're always practical, hands-on of, great, what should you do on your profile? How do you find people? Profile views, how should you be using it? How should you be having conversations? Yep. So definitely looking, to be as practical as possible and bring as much value as we can to your audience. Audience.
I'll plant one final seed for a couple of the challenges that I see. Is I've seen so many people use it to spam that I've called it a spam jungle for many years. And it can be more than that, right? There is that side of it, but there's also the beautiful holistic side of it. And then on the other side too, Eli, is I ask entrepreneurs how many connections you can get. 14,000 connections. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, how many times have you reached back out to those connections? And they never have. And it's like, okay, so you're not really connected. You didn't actually build a relationship. So those are things that we can talk about from the practical side of, right, how do you do it without, I don't need 1,000 birthday messages from people I don't know. Like that's not a really helpful outreach strategy. So there's things we can talk about.
Yeah. You hit two very, like, both of them, the AI jungle, right? So, and the spam jungle, like, it also even more so, it's rampant with AI. And that's why say, don't do the automations, don't do AI, like, be human, build the relationships, like, really care about what you're building here, the fundamentals of human relationships. LinkedIn is that median, as if we were having a conversation face to face in Ecuador, San Antonio, or in Tel Aviv, wherever we would be. And like, really, and also, like, the second point, like, both of them, there's a lot to be discussed there.
You're a gentleman. You're a scholar, you're a champion. I really appreciate you, Eli. And Vision Pros, if you're looking to be on a podcast, come and join us. Be our guest. It says in the top right corner, you can be our guest. Just apply on there, book your show. You don't have to be a world-class LinkedIn executive helping people get a return on LinkedIn in order to be here. Eli is one of the exceptions of an incredible leader who really knows how to help people and has done so for many, many companies. And man, I'm grateful to have you here. And Vision Pros, keep building. You will be able to find success if you stay true to your purpose and you build with integrity. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.